Welcome back to Empowered with Elizabeth Namofsky. We're discussing visiting war zones in impoverished countries and empowering the women in them. Now, speaking of the situation of women in Afghanistan, we hear now and then in the news about how bad their situation is. But of course, it's not something that we get attention on a daily basis. Would you please let us know what we need to know now?
That's right. It no longer makes the headlines every day. It's sort of become normal for us, especially with a war going on in Ukraine that's taking a lot of attention, that their rights have all been taken away. Education has been taken away even for young women now, young girls. And this can only, bode ill for the future. They won't even hope for things anymore that they did when they had schools and access to information from the outside world. But and like I said, I and people with a lot better connections than I tried so hard to get as many women out as possible, and so many are left behind. So I would just encourage anyone who knows of an organization in their community that helps Afghans adjust to life in the States, those that were lucky enough to get out, and if there is legislation or other kinds of movements supporting family reunification, it's possible to negotiate a bit with the Taliban. There are still people leaving on flights, not in mass, but occasionally people can get out. So if anyone still has a heart for this horrible situation, just look around and try to help those that are there, and support all these efforts to get other women out, the relatives of those who have been lucky enough to escape.
So I watched your interview with Leiluma Sadid, who made such an emotional plea to NATO not to
Yeah.
acknowledge the Taliban. Is there anything people can do other than what you just said to help the Afghanistan women? Because even her mother told her to stop advocating or she would die.
That's right, and Leiluma had to make this decision that she could not be silent, because she was one of the few women outside of the country who has this platform, who can ask questions at NATO headquarters, at European Union headquarters. She's extraordinarily brave, and her family also has sacrificed a lot for this. I think that it really helps if people seek out information. If you look past the front page and find the stories about what's happening in Afghanistan still, and perhaps in local communities, there are ways that you can help them. But I think just remaining informed and remaining engaged, and simply reminding yourself that this is not over, and that hopefully in the future we will have more of an opportunity to help. This itself is important. And in fact, the Taliban has not been recognized by the United States nor by the European Union. And I personally hope that this is the case, as long as they have not fulfilled any of the promises they made to the international community for the treatment, especially of women and minorities.
So security and defense are topics often seen as male-dominated issues, as this whole topic that we've been discussing. Is this the case?
It's less the case than when I arrived in Brussels 15 years ago, and was most often the only female in a lot of these briefings, especially the smaller ones. It still happens occasionally, but much less. I'm so encouraged to see young women journalists coming up who are focused on security, on intelligence issues, on the things that used to be more of a male domain. But for example, if you look in the United States, at the reporters covering the Pentagon, so many of them are women. I'm certain that the same is true in Canada as well. There are more and more women on this beat. I mean, there are women soldiers who then move into reporting, like men have done for generations. So it's changing little by little, but it's not easy. It is still a male-dominated world, and if you go out on assignment in Afghanistan, of course you're going to be surrounded primarily by men, because that's who's serving in the armed forces. But it is changing, and women are taking higher leadership roles inside the military, and that also is a good example for all of us.
So we have about 30 seconds before we go to break. So quickly, how did you decide to specialize in this? Because this is not a normal type of job.
it was just the most interesting thing I could do. I covered the State Department for 6.5 years, and moving to Brussels, NATO is the center of so many things that happen here, and I was compelled, and haven't regretted it for a minute.
Good for you. So we're going to get back to talking to you about your career and the women in Afghanistan in a few moments. Don't go away.